drops already.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to round 7 of the NRG Championship. We have Blair Splett over here on the left playing the Izzet Drake's archetype in Standard. Andrew Tenjum on the other side playing Golgari Midrange. He was the 1 seed in his pod letter D to be specifically. Once again, these are the elimination rounds, and these players are playing for first seed in the overall top 8.
So what that means is not only, again, tomorrow, or actually for the remainder of the tournament, for the number 1 seed overall, you get to go first, and you get to have second choice on the veto, which, again, second choice is the preferable choice.
It is better.
So here we go. We have a Branch Walker to lead off, and both players, nobody mulligan, nobody stumbling off the start here.
So Branch Walker for Tenjum, he'll explore and put a Midnight Reaper in the graveyard. Makes me wonder if he's missing that third land drop.
That's true. That does lead to that assumption.
Wow.
No hiccup for Blair Splett. He's ready to go.
Firing off on all cylinders. Opt on the end step with a shock on Tenjum's creature. Blair Splett will create a 3/4 flyer on curve, and he is going off to the races.
Well, if both of these cards hit the bin, let's see. No, we're keeping
Fine
okay,
Finality.
so I think we do probably have our land drops rolled up then. No, never mind. I take it back. So now it's still uncertainty, and this is so maybe we'll get a glimpse of his hand at some point, but as of now, it's unclear.
I think I actually did see a flicker of a swamp in there.
Sure, because even if he has his land drops, I mean, Carnage Tyrant is great later in the game. It's not going to do him any good now. Fine Finality also similarly great later on, not so good now.
Double Enigma Drake will be Blair Splett's turn. Steam Vent's tapped, kind of telegraphing that he doesn't have a dive down in hand, as he did play that Steam Vent's tapped, but obviously maybe not worth shocking to just fake it.
Right. So I agree that he likely doesn't have one in his hand. We'll see. Now, Andrew Tenjum is a well-known player, has had success in the Grand Prix circuit, played in a number of Pro Tours. Can you tell us anything about Blair Splett, who is a more local player to either here or somewhere in some nearby state?
Right, yeah. Tenjum, multiple Grand Prix winner just this year. Blair Splett, on the other hand, I mentioned in our pregame show, the round table this morning, that Blair Splett is a player I've been watching play Magic since 2010 or 11, actually, since he was about 12 years old, something like that. And it's been basically a joy to watch him develop as a player these last few years. We've drifted apart as different LGSs that we play at, but he's been a mainstay and a regular here at Nerd Rage, both on the NRGSeries and during our in-store events during the week for about a year now, ever since I've been here at the shop.
I'm gonna pause for a second and wipe a tear to my eye. You're breaking my heart.
Breaking your heart here with the long story, yeah.
Your affection for Blair Splett over the years, and Blair Splett, I believe, has a brother in the field.
He does,
who also is in the still in the tournament.
He just won his elimination round 6 to secure his spot in the top 8. So pretty awesome story here. Both these guys, whom I've both been watching during the years. And very excited to see them both in top 8 today.
So is Blair the older or the younger?
Blair is the younger, actually.
Okay, so is there some kind of sibling rivalry here? Or do they actually get along?
They're like, Toe Jam and Earl. Let me tell you, they're at every event together, unless Reed's home playing World of Warcraft. Blair, it's interesting. Like, they're very close. They share cards. They're brothers. Like, they work on everything together. They build decks together. They live together. But their deck building approach is very different too. I mean, Reed today playing Boros aggro, been known as a Scapeshift player for years now. Blair Splett has an affinity closer to my heart. He's playing lots of islands in both Standard and Modern today. So big proponent of my style of Magic, and maybe one of the reasons why I'm kind of biased for him as my favorite in the tournament. But once again, regular here at Nerd Rage, been grinding on the series all year long. Actually, was our season 1 points leader. That was how he qualified for today's event.
And we're looking at an attack here now. These Amiibo Drakes are quite large. Tenjum forced to block and trade. At least it is a trade.
Presenting lethal.
And so dropping down to 1, it doesn't have an offense anymore. But we do need a removal spell to save himself, at least for the moment, and we have Vivian Reed takes.
Saw Tenjum flop that out there, expecting Spell Pierce. It actually resolved and got to take down the second Enigma Drake.
So we're looking at a deck with shocks. So even with creatures shot down for the moment, Tenjum is still at risk of just dying at any point. In addition to something like dive down, Tenjum is going to be fairly nervous here for the rest of the game.
Blair playing 2 copies of Search for Azcanta, which he will follow up the Crackling Drake here with. Going to basically be able to filter his draw every single upkeep, unless he flips it, of course, which will help him dig even deeper for that lethal shock burn spell.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. I mean, Blair's at 10, so Tenjum can threaten fairly soon, but again, he has to first keep himself alive. So the Crackling Drake is going to kill in one swing, and that is, in fact, the case. Tenjum attempts to sweep up his cards, actually fumbles half his deck across the table, perhaps in frustration, perhaps in just eagerness to get on to the Cyborg games where he plans on dominating. We shall see.
Definitely.
Out of the board, Andrew does have an extra Carnage Tyrant, which I'm not necessarily sure is going to come in. Obviously, it's going to resolve and is a big threat, but Blair has a bunch of cheaper threats along the curve, and Andrew might need more defense. We have Plaguecrafters. I think there's a good chance we could see those.
Sure.
We have Cast Downs. I think we could see those. And maybe Duress. So actually, I think this Carnage Tyrant has very little chance of actually getting boarded in. The main deck ones, in fact, might find their way going out.
The threat of just playing your, 6-mana, quote-unquote, do-nothing can possibly be met with Blair cracking in for lethal with a flurry of instants and sorceries to grow his Drakes. Always a potential thing out of Blair Splett's deck. The Duresses are interesting. Blair's not playing exactly what we would consider a pure control deck, but getting to snipe away some interaction before Tenjum casts his either answer or threat could prove crucial against the Spell Pierce deck. On the other side of things, Blair has a copy of Beacon Bolt, 1 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Fiery Cannonade, a Niv Mizzet, 2 Rel, Izzet Viceroys, and then 4 Raptor Hatchlings. Those are mostly for the Boros matchups, and then 2 Sarkhan Firebloods and 2 Star of Extinction. By the way, if you're following along at home, you can just hover over their names there and see these full deck lists for yourself thanks to the Cardboard Live extension.
So we're looking at Star of Extinction, obviously going to be good. Raptor Hatchling doesn't really do much except absorb Plaguecrafter, and that's probably not worthwhile.
Certainly.
We have more big cards. We have another Niv Mizzet. We have more Ralzerix.
I like the Rals a lot.
Yeah, Rals are good. It's nice to generate card advantage, since we know that the Golgari deck is generate plenty of card advantage with almost everything it does. We're not splashing 4 white here, so we don't have Deafening Clarion like some decks do, which helps erase and helps clear out some of the smaller creatures. We're really just more of a dive down, protect our Drake, protect our Niv Mizzet deck here on Blair's side. But Star of Extinction is the matchup it's for.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, maybe if some maniac is playing Cabal Stronghold, you could perhaps bring it in there. But really, this is what we're thinking. We're planning on shooting down Memorial to Folly and wiping out the board.
Yeah, really interesting the way that the variety of builds we see out of the green-black decks in Standard. Obviously, just last round, we got to see Mitchell Weiss rock with his heavy undergrowth approach to the archetype. Mm-hmm. But even Andrew Tenjum, so many great cards at the Black-Green Guild's disposal. For example, he's actually opting to play spells over something like the Eldritch Reborn. So at least, Blair gets to know that his Ral Planeswalkers in the graveyard will not be picked up by an Eldritch Reborn, for example. That could definitely be something that would come into play if Andrew had those. That's
true. There's definitely some... The green-black deck, the Undergrowth deck, is significantly different from Andrew Tenjum's build, even though they share the same theme, a lot of the same cards.
Certainly.
It's maybe akin to back in Legacy a few years ago, you have Blue-White Stoneforge, Blue-White Miracles. They probably have 40, 45 cards that are the same, and yet the decks are very different. And the same here. This is probably the more classic green-black mid-range deck in this format. We're approaching more of a stock list. It was the most popular deck of the Pro Tour. I played it at the Pro Tour, a less refined version as it was earlier in the format. But this is just a solid, good deck.
We see Andrew Tenjum having turn 1 Woodland Cemetery come into play tapped. Turn 2 follows that up with a Llanowar Elves. Going to be able to develop his mana a little bit, preparing for turn number 3, getting to cast some kind of 4-drop, hopefully. A A card we didn't get to mention during the sideboard discussion was that of Wild Growth Walker. So Wild Growth Walker, that 1/3 that will grow in size. Oh, well, here it is actually for Tenjum. I was wondering if that was a card that he wanted to keep in, as maybe the life gain isn't as relevant. Blair Splett's not super aggressive, but the way that this card grows out of burn range is pretty crucial, I think. Already one step away from being Lava Coil proof.
I think it is relevant. I think the life gain does matter.
Okay.
I think we have another player kept a 1-land hand.
Wow.
Now, he had an opt, and he was going second, so, I understand. And, again, I do these things too, but a lot of the times when I do this, and this happens, that's when I remind myself, this is why I'm not that good of a player.
So Blair was on the draw. He had that extra draw step to find the land, and he kept Island with at least one opt. We presume he's bottomed both of these opts, and he's just still missing on land drops. This is actually quite unfortunate.
This is, we're past the point now where this is not recoverable, I believe. I mean, there's no...
Yeah.
I mean, even if we had a Pyroclasm next turn to kill the 2 smallest creatures, the 2 bigger ones are still left over. Yeah, it's just done.
Yeah, Blair agrees with you, and he will scoop them up very quickly. Kept a, very, very, I think, solid 7-card hand on the draw with an opt at his disposal. Didn't quite get there. Not enough lands in the top few cards of his deck, and Tenjum will establish a board presence that is insurmountable for Blair Splett. On to game 3 we go.
And I understand. I mean, it just didn't work out for him. But you have. Let's say he had Island and double opt in his hand. Are you going to mulligan that going second?
No, absolutely not.
No, you're going to keep it most of the time. And his deck just said no. Yeah. You're not winning this game, and that's. I mean, we take risks. I mean, it almost feels like, well, that's just an auto keep, right? You have a lot of shots at hitting your second land, and then you need your third land. But with 2 opts, you tell yourself, I have a decent chance of getting it, and you do. But when it doesn't work, you just die. It's not like when it doesn't work, you're behind. You're just dead.
That's true.
That's true. And despite that, we saw it happen last round and this round. And I'm not going to say either player was even wrong necessarily. It's just it's you. The thing is, though, is when you do this, you think to yourself, well, I was unlucky. I got screwed, and you did. But you also made a choice here that had a risk. There is, if you tell yourself, well, 70% of the time this will work out. That's fine.
Right.
30% of the time, you're just dead. And that's hard to overcome.
Yeah, and I think, Blair kept that hand understanding that risk. I mean, we're all playing Magic here. He knows what's possible, and he kept it. Now, I know I would keep that hand all day, every day.
Yeah, I would too.
But, it's Magic the Gathering. That's why this game's great. Anything can happen. Tenjum stepped out of the match for just a moment, maybe to check a sideboard card or use the restroom. So we're going to see our pretty faces for one more moment as they get their final shuffling done.
It's also the kind of thing where, we both say we keep the hand. Obviously, Mitchell kept his hand. Blair kept his hand.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that we're right. Do we actually know that that's the correct
choice?
We're
just greed mongers?
We're all saying that we would do it. We could all be wrong.
Maybe.
I mean, none of us here are pros. Maybe the pros are laughing at us, and they're
you played in the last Pro Tour, right?
I did.
So you're a pro.
Not well. People have different internal definitions of pro. By my definition, I'm not a pro.
Sure.
And maybe the pros are looking at those hands like, well, those are obvious mulligans, and we'll let the crappy players keep those hands and die. And that's who we are. They're talking about us.
Sure. Blair Splett was going to keep his 7 as well as Tenjum, who will play a tap Steam Vents over to Tenjum, who will shock himself and have a Llanowar Elves already on his way to getting ahead here with the Llanowar Elf acceleration. Kind of taking his time here on turn 2, though. Not sure what he wants to actually sequence. Makes me wonder if he has a Jade Light or... Okay.
Well, he has a tap land, so that may have an impact. Oh, that was an attack. Okay, so he's not actually playing anything this turn.
Right. So I saw... He goes with Memorial to Folly tapped, but he had an Overgrown Tomb that maybe he could have shocked to play something, but he chose not to.
Is this Ravenous? This is going to be a good turn if it is. Bang.
Oof.
No, that's not. That's what we're looking for. And then if he still has the tap land, he potentially is going to be able to not shock from it and play the Jade Light next turn while attacking. Well, scratch the attack part, but the actually no, that's a 0/4 Drake. He could conceivably attack with both guys to get in for a point if he wanted to.
That is true. No 0 mana or sorceries in standard. Thankfully. Tenjum going to consider his hand here. Thanks to Llanowar Elf, he could just be...
Oh, is this...
It is
wow,
Vivian.
This is a great draw from Andrew. I'm sorry. This is a great draw from both players.
True.
And it's just lining up extraordinarily well for Andrew Tenjum's side.
That is true, yeah. Power of Llanowar Elf, still good. still as good as it was in 1994.
Now Blair has one more of each creature in his hand. What's kind of sad here for him is that, so obviously he plays one, and then Andrew will plus the Vivian. If Blair doesn't manage to get a spell in the graveyard, he won't even be able to attack for 1 damage, and the Vivian will be able to shoot down another creature. Now,
True.
The odds are that won't happen. Blair will probably be able to put at least 1 spell in the graveyard this turn, but
He's also found a dive down.
Okay, that's good on multiple levels next turn, but it won't do him any good right now.
Right. Yeah.
Andrew randomizes. It's a funny, brief story here. Vivian Reed does randomize the cards you put on the bottom of the deck.
Oh.
At the Pro Tour, I was unaware of this, and during all of our practicing the week before the Pro Tour, we just put the 3 cards on the bottom, not being cognizant of it.
Okay.
At the Pro Tour, I played against a player from somewhere in South America, and I used Vivian. I plus Vivian, put the cards on the bottom, and when I said random, and I was like, "What? Excuse me?" He's like, "Random." I was like, "What are you talking about? You have to randomize the cards." Oh, right. So I randomized the cards. Next turn, I did it again.
Yeah.
Next turn, I did it again.
Yep.
So repeat over and over again.
Muscle memory.
Random. I don't understand. Oh, it's just
Yeah.
muscle memory or just stupidity.
Yeah. Read the card.
Well, yeah, I know, but like, I mean, I don't really read the cards. I don't really look at the artwork. None of that. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I have no excuse for myself.
No excuses.
Anyway, so this game continues on. We had a Lava Coil takedown.
Wow. So Blair Splett opting to Lava Coil down the Wild Growth Walker while he still can, and then just deploy an Enigma Drake, basically daring Tenjum to get rid of the Vivian here.
Yeah, and that is tough because, oh boy. The replacement Vivian after shooting down 2, and now this Vivian can shoot down 2 more creatures.
Yep. And
then this Chupacabra, since the Lava Coil had to take down Wild Growth Walker, Chupacabra, if at some point dies, we have Memorial to Folly, which takes down another creature. There's just, I mean, Andrew Tenjum has rolled up the ability to kill the next 3 flyers that get played.
He is putting on a mid-range clinic.
Yeah, now there are multiple dive downs in player's hand, and we're now reaching the point where maybe he has enough mana to actually utilize them, but this is getting tough. And he chooses to pass on his turn. What are we looking? Oh boy, and then a duress. I feel like Blair had a solid starting hand, and it's deteriorating, and now he's got to be grimacing here. We need a 6th land for the Niv. Is that red card a Star of Extinction?
It is a Star of Extinction.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get to the point where we can catch that.
Which is 7 mana, right?
No, yeah, it is 7 mana, and it goes away. So,
do we feel like Blair could have sequenced anything better, like taken a turn off to wait till he had dive down mana, anything like that, or it's just kind of the way that Andrew curved out?
Honestly, it's hard to say that you should do that, but I mean, what kind of clock did Andrew have? He had an elf.
Right.
And then the Chupacabra came down.
Very
but
quickly.
The Chupacabra probably wasn't going to come down if there was no Drake on the board.
Of course.
However, the Vivian would have gotten played, and if Blair doesn't have a counter, then the Vivian's going to run away anyway.
Blair will shock down the Chupacabra as it came into the red zone. Follow-up Carnage Tyrant, Carney T for Andrew Tenjum, and the Revenant Chupacabra in the graveyard, waiting to be picked up thanks to that Memorial to Folly.
But we drew our answer for Carnage Tyrant, right? So we're okay? No, it got to rest.
Yeah, Star of Extinction is gone, unfortunately.
And, Niv Mizzet is there to
be plummeted.
Eat some loyalty.
Vivian Reed is going to pull her bowstring and snipe down the dragon himself.
No, it's not. And if you're Blair, now you really have to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, wow. My jaw just dropped. Vivian Reed tick up. Blair is terrified.
Blair is
a
Plague Crafter. Yikes.
Sacks the Plague Crafter.
Yeah,
just keeps around the Llanowar Elf.
Blair's down to 2. Also, we have sacrificing the Plague Crafter because we can memorial it back to kill another creature next turn, and it's done.
Blair will scoop him up very quickly, and Andrew Tenjum is going to be your 1 seed, first place going into the top 8 tomorrow morning.
Right, Andrew Tenjum did not. So these were the 2 players that won. 2 of the players that won their pods. Blair did lose a match though. Andrew Tenjum swept his pod and now wins this match, and so he's the number 1 seed tomorrow, and he deserves it. He just crushed.
He won every match today, making it look easy. Grand Prix champion Andrew Tenjum easily in the top 5 favorites for today, and he's showing us that we were pretty right on that prediction.